Google must pay $2.7 billion in fines, says a EU court. Now, the European Union rarely does much, if any, good in the world, but this is a nice change of pace. It absolutely is. And here's the thing, too. You may notice this article right here is a little bit old. Updated 4 years ago, June 27, 2017. Old news, surely, and yes, but the important part is it has now actually finally been ruled on again. As we all know, the court systems are fascinating things. They seem to defy all rules of thermodynamics, as dazzling amount of money and manpower and time goes in the one end, and out the other comes absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. It seems to simply just annihilate matter entirely from this plane of existence, yet occasionally something goes wrong in this archaic process and a decision is actually made. And this here is one of them. Google appealed the fine and the appeal has now been refused. The fine is upheld and the entirety of the fine is maintained. $2.7 billion. Oh, that's not chump change, even for Google. Now, there are some good arguments made here as well. Google loses challenge against EU antitrust ruling, $2.8 billion fine. Rounding up, I guess, from Reuters. What they point out here is that this started years and years ago. In fact, this entire thing started back in 2014. Was when all of this ball started actually rolling. And this is 1 out of 3 cases currently undergoing review and appeal for a combined sum of 8.2 billion euros. So like 9 or 10 billion dollars. Oh, that might actually be enough to cause some real damage to Google. And they also bring up, of course, the Microsoft court case, where they also lost a massive fine and actually started mending their ways, at least a tiny little bit thereafter. I mean, they're even more predatory today, to be honest, so, you know, how well did that really work out? Nevertheless, this is absolutely a victory, though I must rain on the parade yet again, yes. I must pee upon your pleasure one more time. This isn't the last appeal. A court case started in 2014 is 2/3 of the way done in 2021. Good genuine God. Now, Google hasn't decided yet whether or not they will appeal, but I mean, let's be honest here, this is a frightening quantity of cash. And as they mention in this article as well here, or not the article itself, but the experts they're talking to, this has allowed Google to continue to engage in anti-competitive actions, because this is the heart of this entire lawsuit, namely the EU alleging that Google was favoritizing its own products. Who would have thunk it? Over their various competitors on their platforms, because this is of course the thing. Google isn't just a search engine, and Alphabet, their owners, certainly doesn't do just search engine stuff. And so whenever there was a search for email software, for example, Google would just happen to suggest Gmail. Just coincidentally, of course, or whenever any other software that they had a ownership stake in would be searched for, again, just happened to suggest their own shit. Coinky dinky winky, absolutely. Except, apparently not according to the EU. And this allows them to continue. So long as there's not a final ruling, there is no actual real legal recourse to be taken. The EU can't then move in and start setting up antitrust regulation based on this. And that is the final end goal as well. And we need to have like a bigger discussion on this at some point in the future when we start to see how this really starts to shake out, because we've already seen it in the UK, for example, the government beginning to push for more and more censorship whilst pretending that it is regulation on big tech. The entire idea of de-anonymizing, I guess we can call it, social media, forcing people to use their real names, or at the very least setting up a registry where the government can look up your real name and personal information based upon your account, is not regulation on big tech. It's regulation on you and me, the actual users. We are the ones who are going to be actually, well, persecuted. Yes, not prosecuted. Persecuted, that's the correct word, and I'm going to stick by it, over this for mean words on the internet. Hell, we saw this literally yesterday with Nancy Pelosi pushing for the actual legal law enforcement's investigation of a opposition politician. Now, his name was obviously out there already, but the only difference here between you and me getting actually followed and chased down by law enforcement over spicy tweets is we still have a hint of anonymity left, whatever little tiny bit remains of it. The EU is not a trustworthy organization by any stretch of the definition, not whatsoever. They are absolute tyrannical bastards, and I expect that any form of regulation they impose upon big tech won't actually regulate the big tech companies, but rather simply be yet another way to advantage the European Union. Though, again, here's the problem. As I've repeated again and again, we are currently in a situation where we are being screwed by big tech. The idea of the EU screwing us, or our own government screwing us, is still a theoretical. And even if they do decide to engage in a little bit of backslidely buggery, we still have the power to vote them out of office and get people who might fix it into office, whereas we have absolutely no such power over Google. The European Union either, to be entirely fair with you, but hey, details. One burned bridge at a time, I guess. And when it comes to antitrust regulation as well, the entire reason why we are in this enormous mess to begin with, where two companies, Facebook and Google, own 60% of all internet advertisement, and Google alone owns 90% of the web searches, is because antitrust regulation, specifically in the US in this case, has absolutely, blatantly failed miserably, and continue to fail to this day. There was a recent ruling, for example, in an antitrust motion against Google, one of many ongoing right now in the US, which was rejected because the judge said that success is not a punishable offense or a criminal offense. That's true, you're absolutely correct. But when that success leads you to a 90% market dominance, then yes, it is a punishable offense. Then again, the odds of finding a judge willing to put their neck on the line for that decision is, well, we'll have to wait and see, I do suppose. We shouldn't have been here. We have legislation. There is laws and rules in place right now to prevent this from happening, but it's not being applied. Even over here in Norway, for example, we have pretty strident consumer rights, for example. What Steam is doing with offering licenses to own your video games is blatantly illegal. But as I've talked about previously, this is one of those lesser evils which we kind of just accept because the company isn't abusing it. What Google is doing, however, stuff like, for example, the rolling updates and getting rid of old operating systems. Theoretically, that's not legal here because, well, for example, in the family company, we've used Windows XP on a lot of machines for absolutely ever, simply because it works. So why get rid of it? With the whole Windows Vista, etc. stuff, however, with the ending of service, some of this shit actually goes entirely inoperable unless you begin fixing it, patching it, and adding on your own little stuff. In fact, I believe there is even a court case ongoing right now that basically says that, okay, if you're going to do this, you have to release all of the information, because otherwise it's essentially a defunct product that is no longer fit for purpose. Whether or not that will go anywhere is an entirely different question. And honestly, this is the best card we've got right now, because for all of its faults, the European Union does have a great deal of legislative power, and it might actually be able to enforce this fine by saying, okay, you pay, or we shut you out of the entire European market. That's a hell of a lot more, really, than $8.5 billion. Or euros in this case again. Losing access to Germany, to France, to the European Union nations altogether is worth a lot more to Google than the fine is. And once they've accepted the fine, they're of course going to have to accept the regulation that goes along with it. Otherwise, the fine will simply just keep on ticking. That's the beauty of it. If you don't fix your problem, well, we're just gonna charge you an extra 100,000 euros each and every day. Which again, does start to mount up awfully quickly. So it's, again, let's not pat ourselves on the back just yet. Again, this started in 2017. They were found guilty, or it started 2014. They were found guilty in 2017. The first appeal is now done in 2021, and they might still, of course, send it up to the highest court in the European Union for another, what, 5-6 years of review? This is kind of the issue, isn't it? We can't actually make any decisions, and over this time, all of Google's competitors have simply fallen by the wayside, one by one by one. Google has expanded its market dominance, bought up even further competitors, and driven others out of business. Yeah, by the time we actually get a ruling on this, is there going to be anyone left in the entire marketplace that, hell, forget competitors, even alternatives? Will they even exist in another 5 years? With the way Google and YouTube is doing things, I'm not so sure. Anywho, it is a victory for now at least. A little pep talk, if nothing else. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and again, as always, if you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like and a comment in the section below. And yes, the dislike button is going to go away now. Well, it's not going to go away, you can still click it, but you can't see the number. We'll probably talk about this in this week's Archcast, as YouTube has decided to remove the dislike button to protect us, the little people. Yes, totally not to protect Disney or Marvel or any of the other major corporations, or indeed incumbent political parties that tend to be hammered with it. No, it's totally for our benefits. Have a good day.